What's up? Happy Tuesday. Making the cut for week 5. Neil Smith, Lance Exley. Lance, how you doing, buddy?
Just when I thought, Chicago had hope, they go and snatch it right from you.
That's your
So,
mistake.
you know,
See, that's your mistake. Take it from somebody who's
yep,
been watching that their whole life, who's
yeah,
36 years old and has been watching it their whole life. Take it from me, man. You never
yeah.
you never buy into that
No, that
ever.
was brutal.
You
No, that
never you
was
never allow
probably one of
yourself.
their, yeah,
Nope. You the key is clinical, very cynical detachment.
yeah.
That is what you do.
That's kind of what I'm finding out at this point because it's just like,
I know you
oh
live in
man,
Minnesota, so you don't deal with this. Like it
yeah,
you gotta completely remove all faith out of that
yep,
equation. There is no faith. There is no getting better. There is just pain. So
yeah,
as an aside to that, I have a lot of friends who still live back that way, even though I haven't lived in Chicago for God 15 plus years. Because I've bounced all over, but I still have a lot of friends back that way. People I grew up with, people who are also lifelong Bears fans, like people I still talk to. And I mean, when I say that, I mean I talk to them like almost every day.
right.
I tell you what I told them. A couple years ago, I stopped watching the Bears game on Sundays, and I just started putting on the red zone. And my mental health improved. My actual real life mental health has gotten better with that little adjustment. That's what you do. You don't watch those games. You just put on the red zone and let Scott Hansen just take you around the league. And if it gets to the Bears, it gets to the Bears. And that's fine. But you don't watch that game. You just don't. That's the whole point.
I mean, I feel that's 50-50. Not watching the Bears is Scott Hansen in the red zone. Like
Yeah,
that is the only way to watch football.
that's
Like
the way to
even
do it. You don't.
yeah.
I'm to the point where this has been going on for years now. I can't watch one football game anymore. It's very difficult. Like I can do it.
Unless it's
Like
a prime time,
sure, prime time is different, but like during the
Yeah.
day, no, I'm
No.
not watching one football
It's
game. That's stupid. Like,
yeah, I'm just trying to check in on
you
other
got to get
games
that
too and
heroin
figure out
straight in the arm. Like
exactly
you gotta,
like go for
you just you
it.
don't you just needle it up. That's we
Right.
at Important Nonsense do not condone heroin use, and that is just an analogy. I want to be very clear to anyone who's watching this that is not me condoning drug use. It's just that's what that's like though, because you just it just takes you into its world, and that is the way to watch football. Is you
Oh,
get all of it
absolutely.
at one time, especially if you're playing fantasy. Which, if you're watching this, you undoubtedly play fantasy. That's how you do it. That's the
I would hope
that's the
so.
way to roll. Uh, yeah, don't watch the Bears, but also watch the red zone. Those are the two rules that I have. That's and then I live in Denver, obviously, so I'm watching people celebrate. I'm like, you beat the worst team in football. Congratulations! Oh my god, you did it! Like,
And
hooray
you
for you!
pretty much like you would have lost if they didn't pretty much screw themselves out
If
of
they
the
weren't
win.
useless,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Like, woo, you did it! Congratulations! What do you want? A piece of candy? That's not something I'd be celebrating. Like,
No.
you look terrible for 90% of that. You almost lost to a team that I don't want to say could go 0 and 17 like the Cleveland Browns, but could go 0 and 17 like Cleveland Browns. That's what it is. So, um, yeah, that's where we're at here, folks. It's not good. There's welcome back, Chuck. It's always nice for you to come and keep. I appreciate you coming and keeping us company. And that's also the right approach. You start Fields, you just
Yeah.
close your eyes, and you don't pay attention to it. You just check back at the end to see what the final number was, and then that's how you roll. That's how you live that with that from now on. Okay. Well, Lance, this is a big one because this is the start of the buys, obviously. So we're here. We did it.
Yeah.
We're a
You
quarter
made
of the
it.
way. Believe it or not, we're a quarter of the way through the NFL regular season. We did it. We're there. Well, I guess technically that's a little bit of a misnomer because that would assume 16 weeks. We're effectively a quarter of the way through the NFL regular season. How's that? So
Good
this is
enough.
where it gets interesting because now you got the buys. So Cleveland, Tampa Bay, Chargers, and
Seattle.
Seattle are
Yep.
all on bye this week. So be prepared to make adjustments for that, particularly in Guillotine, where this makes a big difference because the margin for error is so much more narrow. You can't. This is why, like for example, bye week stacking in Guillotine, not a good idea. Great idea in other formats. I love it. I do it all the time. Bad idea in this format. Really bad. Because you will probably get killed. But it also means that our usual advice gets a little truncated because 4 teams on bye, you have less options on waivers. It ups the degree of difficulty here a little bit, just a little bit in the background. So, but we have plenty of things to go through still. So, Lance, what do you say? You want to start at quarterback like normal?
Let's get into it.
All right. Well, who's your we'll do traditional waivers stuff first as we seem to kind of fall into that pattern. What's your waiver advice here for what is going to be admittedly a tough week?
It's tough. There's probably a lot more names on the wire that fall into that mid tier, and Joe Burrow with them. And there was a couple names who had big weeks or bounce back weeks that maybe got off the wire that might help. So, uh, first and foremost, if CJ Stroud is not rostered in your league, for the love of God, go get him, please. Like
We've been saying last chance to roster CJ Stroud for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I mean he is pretty much a shoe-in for rookie of the year unless Anthony Richardson can give him a run for his
Makes the
money, and I
playoffs.
think that's possible. I mean, you know, it's going to come down between those two. It's a quarterback award. Go back to when Justin Jefferson was a rookie and Justin Herbert was a rookie. They give it to the quarterback. So it's going to be one of those two. But anyway, awards aside, like he's putting up the numbers. He's, a machine. If Anthony Richardson is out there, he's not. But if for some reason whoever had him didn't survive the week he was out, go get him too. Mayfield had a nice week. Sam Howell kind of bounced back. That was nice to see. And from there, it kind of gets a little dicey. I mean, you get into that. Do you really want to try the? Do you want to gamble on Zach Wilson with your
No,
fantasy
I
future?
don't.
Is really where it
I
comes into if
really,
you're out of
really
options from there.
can't
I
stress
don't
enough how little
either,
I want to do that.
but there's people out there who I guarantee you will. So
Sure. Sure, people buy reverse mortgages and all kinds of other ill-advised things that you probably shouldn't do. So I mean, there's no accounting for that. I mean,
right.
but I agree. CJ Stroud, believe it or not, is more available than Anthony Richardson. CJ Stroud is still available in
What do
over
we do?
50% of leagues on aggregate. I don't know how that's possible, but it is. So that was actually something I wanted to point out myself that I had prepped is CJ Stroud still available somehow, some way. That's a thing. I think it might have something to do with the Texans jersey that they make him wear. That
That's kind of
that
the thing. I think it's a mental barrier for a lot of people. You see people in a Texans jersey, you're used to them being terrible, but
do your
honestly,
homework,
like,
Chuck.
yeah.
Do your homework. Normally I would call people a nerd, but I'm also a massive nerd, so that's kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. Go do your homework, Chuck.
But yeah, I mean, you're kind of seeing these offenses now. Um, Throw another one out there. Cardinals is one that it's like, we knew their game script was going to be favorable, but I don't think anyone really thought they were going to do much with it. But Josh Dobbs isn't doing terrible, and you're getting a little bit more than you probably thought out of their wide receiver Wilson,
Wilson
Hollywood
has looked
Brown.
good. We're gonna get into Wilson in a minute here.
Yeah.
But I'll do this quick. I'm gonna jump in here at that point.
Yep.
I'll do this quickly. So of things that are widely available, C.J. Stroud, we already covered it. That should be the number one quarterback claim. Arguably, he's the number two waiver claim for me generally, and that's not even just for Guillotine. That's across the format. That's
Mm-hmm.
across all fantasy. He should be at like 80+% rostered. That's where CJ Stroud should be. So
Mm-hmm.
and get on this now because we keep saying last chance. It should have been the last chance 2 weeks ago. So you're
Yeah.
already kind of late here. If you're hearing this, then my next choice is Sam Howell. I'm willing to throw out the really horrible beating that he took where he looked terrible. Because other than that, that one bad game aside, they've looked competent. I wouldn't say good, but competent. And like Sam Howell has already proven to me that he's better than Taylor Heineke.
Oh, yeah.
That's not, and Taylor
Yeah.
Heineke was being started. That's kind of my point. So he's number 2. Number 3 is Josh Dobbs. I think you and I are pretty much on the same page there. Don't love it, but widely available. If I need a Band-Aid for buys and all these other guys are gone, don't reach for Zach Wilson. That's suicide. I'd much rather deal with Dobbs. And it's not because Dobbs is great. I've seen that movie a number of times going back to when he played for Tennessee. He's fine. But the issue is here, the Cardinals aren't going to be in positive game script at all, ever.
No.
So they're going to throw like crazy, and he's actually been pretty efficient. And then what we have to wait and see is James Conner going to get suspended for the game for throwing a punch at a guy after the game was already over. But I hope that doesn't happen. But those are going to be the top 3, and then after that it gets ugly. We mentioned the buys; it gets ugly. For me, I would say after Dobbs, which if you can't get Dobbs, I mean something's wrong because that's free. That's just available. But then the next 3 are Tannehill, Bryce Young, and don't feel great about it, but it's a guy. And the final one would be Mitch Trubisky, but only if Pickett is actually ruled out, which we don't know. It's Tuesday. They said he's going to practice tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Even Mike Tomlin doesn't know. No one's willing to commit to this. But we've seen Trubisky in a Steelers uniform, and far be it from me to recommend Mitchell Trubisky as someone who's seen far too much of that over the years. But it's bye weeks, it's Band-Aids. You might need something for a week. I would be okay against the Ravens in a game where they're going to be getting pantsed and they're going to have to throw it, and you're just hoping that it's enough to be competent. So you have that. That's kind of where I'm at for quarterback as far as things that are widely available. I'm not super interested in the Zach Wilsons or the Mac Joneses or the other things of that ilk. The Patriots are coming apart like a cake in the rain. That went cake in the rain fast, faster than I thought it would. You want to defend your mans? Or are you going to give up on that too?
I'm not going to give up on that. I mean, we've seen what Dallas's defense can
You're
do
a trooper.
to opposing quarterbacks. I mean, they're game records this year, and that in turn is actually probably not out there, but there's a slim chance he might be. Dak Prescott might be on the wire for Guillotine just because their defense is just so suffocating early. It gets them out of the passing game script so fast that he's only finishing, in the teens most weeks. But,
you want to do that? You want to do that? We could do that. The pivot into the what might be available for your Guillotine league, because I agree with you. Dak could be available, and I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it in a Guillotine, but I would put up $10-15 for it and see if I get it. And if I can use him as a backup or something as a spot starter, I'm not prepared to just give up on it just yet. So that could be a good buy low opportunity. We said Joe Burrow. If he's still available, again, I'll put $10 to $15 on it and I'll stash. This is if I have a good team.
Yeah.
The Joe Burrow thing is only if I have a good team. If I have a good team, I'll put a couple dollars and then stash him, and then we'll wait until the end of the year. Because if you don't do it now, here's the other thing: you might have another opportunity next week. Because you got a couple weeks on this if you want to go that route, but because he's been brutal, and but if you have a good team and you want to stash him, and you've got a spot, I would not spend more than $5-10 to do it. But he's on my list of guys that it's like, yeah, okay, I could talk myself into holding that as my backup quarterback. Obviously, if Patrick Mahomes with the bad week, if that team somehow fell apart, because they're completely dependent on Patrick Mahomes, I would spend way more than $15 on that because I would put up 50, neighborhood of that,
for
maybe
Mahomes?
Slightly more. Yeah, for Mahomes, put it between 50 and 75, something like that. But here's the problem with that: somebody is going to blow half their fab budget on it way too early in the season, and if they're going to do that, I'm inclined to let them.
I mean, I'd go 100 just because if your quarterback situation is bad enough and you're getting sick of just barely winning by streaming, that's a
Or
set your
clinging on
quarterback
by your
and forget about it.
fingernails to about
Yeah.
from barely. Yeah, if you've been riding Trevor Lawrence, for example, and he's been killing you,
Hmm.
I know a guy who's dealing
And
with that
that
situation.
and that's the thing is
It's
like
me. I'm the
Lawrence,
guy.
he's almost not playing bad enough to kill you, but he's not playing good enough for where you drafted him. So he's
No, there
extremely
something's broken.
frustrating.
Something's broken in that
Yeah.
offense. And it's not even so much his. It's some of it is his fault
Hmm.
because you can't get out of all the blame here. You're the one
Yeah.
throwing the ball. I mean,
Yeah.
but there's also the idea that the O line has been underperforming. They can't get the ball out in a timely manner. Zay Jones has been hurt. That actually makes a difference. And I've been making this joke all week. Is if you would have told me that like 3 years ago that Zay Jones would be a difference maker for a team, I'd have laughed in your face. Like that's just the way the world is, unfortunately, sometimes. But I would be the other true like top end of quarterback just isn't available. Like Kirk Cousins,
Hmm.
Justin Fields, they haven't been what you wanted, but they're not bad enough to kill you. Jared Goff is kind of the same thing. Like he's already rostered too high.
Hmm.
I'm out on Daniel Jones. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And that is
And
and that's I'm gonna let
it's
someone else deal with that. I'm not even putting a bid in. I don't care.
his offensive line is just and he's not making the best decisions out there either,
Yeah,
but his
you can't
offensive
get
line,
sacked 12. Ask Justin Fields about
yeah.
what it's like to get sacked 12 times and then see what it does to
Yeah.
your decision making. So I can't even really
Yeah.
blame Daniel Jones the whole way around.
No,
Nobody
he's
could play behind that O line
he's
effectively. It's
getting
just not
killed
doable.
right now.
Yeah,
They don't have Andrew Thomas back, I'm pretty sure, and they're
and we've seen this.
teeing off on
We've
him.
seen this before. Daniel Jones with Saquon,
Yeah.
NFL starting caliber quarterback. Daniel Jones with no Saquon, playing in the XFL.
Yeah.
That's literally how that works. And he hasn't had Saquon. So that's killing them as well. They need Saquon back. That's just how it goes. That's just how it be. Uh, and then but I'm out on that. I'm not putting any money up on that. I don't care. Uh, what about Jordan Love? Are you interested in this still? Because that might be available because it
It there's
hasn't been
hasn't been
great.
enough to shake me from it. I mean, he's, still about top 10 and passing, point or fantasy points per drop back. So I mean,
Problem
he's
is teams are figuring out that they have no run game, and until they can fix that, they're just going to keep pinning their ears back on them. And that's kind of what's hurting them right now is their O-line is better than the Giants. Thank God for that, because
mhm.
he'd be in the same boat, I'm convinced, as Daniel Jones. Because I think we all need to have a collective conversation here about the fact that A.J. Dillon isn't good at football. And if only there was some guy who's been telling you that for 4 years, who owns a website and does 3 shows a week and has midlife crisis hair and wears a Cubs hat. He's me. I'm the guy who's been telling you that. You can't average 2.5 yards a carry and have me take you seriously. And they're not even like giving him opportunities in a real way. He's standing back there. He's on the field.
Mhm.
They're not giving him the ball. Whereas like Aaron Jones was out there on one leg, clearly limited, and it still looked like they looked more comfortable going to Jones. So I'm hoping that as Jones gets healthier, that will help Love, because the Packers cannot have no run game and have that offense function. They will immediately start plummeting like a stone, because I can tell teams are getting film, they're getting tape, and they're starting to figure this out. Where it's like, no, the way to beat the Packers right now is make Jordan Love do everything, because he can't. He's not in that point in his career yet where he can just put the team on his back and carry them to the promised land. He needs a running back. He needs a running game to take some of the pressure off, make defenses respect it. And that's kind of what scares me as it relates to Love, especially in Guillotine, where again the margin for error is so small. So I'm not going to cut him, if I've already got him. But I got one more for you because I want to get your opinion here, Lance. What do you do with Brock Purdy? What do you do with this? I don't know. I'm genuinely asking. I
You
don't know.
gotta keep. I mean, he's got so much talent around him. Where you gotta keep him. I mean, it's not going to be pretty every single week, but you have
Oh, I mean, do
Such
you
a
like pick him up? Is more my like. Do you pick him up and start him coming into the buys? Is that what we do now?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, especially if you have a quarterback who's on bye. It's like you got someone who's got a ton of upside, and they're not going to let him throw more than if he starts to implode, they're not going to let him throw more than one interception because they'll just start handing it to McCaffrey every single play. They pretty much already do that, whether it's a run or a pass, but they're going to literally keep him safe and just keep the upside there.
Until the end of the year when
You
they
know,
put McCaffrey in bubble wrap and put him on the side of the uh uh. Here's a fun story. I actually beat a guy in a game this weekend who had McCaffrey. Because my
God.
whole team just went off. And I had Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and
Oh wow.
Chris Godwin, and he scored 50 points in that league, and I beat him. And I could feel the hatred coming through the computer monitor. Because if you get 50 points from one individual player, you're probably winning.
Well, especially, I mean, McCaffrey, that's about, regular day at the office for him, it feels like at this point,
When Elijah Mitchell's not out there, I mean, they're at the point
Yeah.
now where they kind of need Mitchell just because you can't have McCaffrey out there the whole game doing that job all year. He's going to die.
Yeah.
That's
No,
too
I
much work.
mean,
It's just
you've
too
seen,
much. Like
yeah. Yeah. No, I think they're going to scale it back a little bit,
they've been trying. It's just
once.
they don't trust Mason, and I don't blame them for that. But that's why they like Mitchell. Is
Mhm.
because Mitchell's not great, but he's competent. This is
No,
what we were
he'll
talking
be
about
there,
last week.
can break it outside, so
That's what we were talking about
yeah.
last week. Is that people were cutting Mitchell, and I'm like, that's a mistake. That's a mistake. Don't do that. Like, all right. Well, that's quarterback. We've given people plenty of options, even for a down week 5.
Mhm.
There's still options available for you, both in terms of veterans that are struggling in Guillotine that probably could bounce back, but also just the general waiver wire stuff that also applies to Guillotine. I do
One
have
more
a.
I'd like to
Oh,
add would be
go ahead.
Matthew Stafford.
Is he
Still,
available? That can't be. He can't possibly be available.
if he's available, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like he is.
That can't be right. I'm looking this up. I'm derailing the whole show now. Read
I'm
on
sorry.
camera. This is Lance's fault. He did this. He
Can't
knows I
help it.
can't read. He knows that I just fake it and pretend. Um. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. hmm. It's like right on the borderline. I'll give it to you. If he's available, I concur. So where
Yeah.
do you have him on the pantheon of guys that we were just talking about? I assume
I'd
above like
probably
the Dobbses of the world.
I would definitely put him first. I mean, you're potentially going to be getting Cooper Cup back in a couple
Not over
weeks. You've
CJ
already
Stroud, really?
Oh, not over CJ. Okay. Okay.
Over
I was
Howell,
yeah,
sure.
I forgot.
Sure.
I forgot Stroud was a legitimate thing because
Everybody
it's
does. That's why he's
still
only rostered in like 46% of, not even 46, it's like 40 something percent of leagues.
yeah.
Everybody has. It's fine. I get it. Like,
Yeah. No, it just makes no sense to me at
over
all. But
Howell,
yeah.
sure.
Okay. Yeah. So Stroud, Stafford, because I mean he's going to be getting Cooper Cup back. We've seen what he's doing with Puka and Tutu. I mean, this offense is back to passing it. He's already thrown for 300
I
yards
don't know.
three
They're
times
running it
this
pretty
season.
effectively too. Kyron Williams has been impressive.
He
Um,
has been. I mean, he's
it
getting
it makes you wonder
83% of the
what the
snaps. So I
hell
mean,
is what the hell is the problem with Cam Akers?
I
I'm
have no
seriously
clue.
asking. I can't figure that out. I'm like, wait, Kyron Williams? You mean that guy that never done anything ever? And he's looking like a world beater right now?
Yeah, it took him
He's
one
single-handedly
game, a
carrying one of
couple
my
games of
fantasy teams.
him, and they shipped Akers out of town. So I mean, I have no clue what their thought process is behind that. But
It was right, objectively correct. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
unless they end up trading for John Taylor, then that's going to be
I
a
don't see what the
whole
point of that
nother.
is. What's the point of that?
Yeah,
If you were going to do that, you do that if you're a team like Miami. And even that's looking like a less of a good idea the longer the
no,
season goes.
not with Achan.
I mean, Achan and Mostert and Wilson coming back. What's the point? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to spend all this money for what? A guy who is going to need 3 or 4 weeks to get ready anyway? I mean, if you think he can help you win a Super Bowl, I mean, you do it. But is that really the best way to allocate your money? Like, at this point,
No, I think the
really?
Rams have learned their lesson with that. I think they kind of
Oh, I
last
meant the Dolphins. I know the Rams have learned their lesson from that. That's why
yeah.
they're not paying these guys.
Yeah. And no, the Dolphins, I mean, the one thing I heard rumored was that the Colts asking price was Jalen Waddle straight up for John Taylor.
Yeah,
It's like, good
and
God, no.
good luck with
That
that.
that
That's
that
never going to
is
happen.
that is the
Not
one trade
ever going to
you
happen.
get, the trade request you get from one of your league mates where it's just like, dude, you're offering me nothing. Like,
That's the
no,
one where
go
either you
away.
just decline it and move on with your day, but if you've got some free time, you start making equally ridiculous counter offers
I just
and
don't even, yeah,
just see
don't
what
even
happens. Like,
acknowledge it. Just,
yeah, if I'm
I'm
busy, I just
not
decline
worthy.
it and move on. Yeah, we just move on with our day.
Yeah.
But if it's like Friday, if it's like Saturday morning and I got nothing to do because it's my day
Yep.
off, yeah, I'll send you some useless trade offer back just because you've annoyed me and wasted. You're gonna waste my time. I'll waste your time right back. But yeah, the other offer I heard was they wanted like a first and a second and a third or something stupid, and I'm like, you're never gonna get that. Like,
Yeah.
you'd be lucky to get 2 seconds.
Yep.
If you were lucky, you'd be lucky. You'd be getting that. Like, no, Taylor is in a tough spot because it's like, what team is like a running back away from trying to be somebody or do something? You know what I mean? Like, who is that team in the NFL right now? The Ravens, I guess.
Yeah, you could argue that. I mean,
My
they've,
level of conviction is that I'm literally ending that sentence with like a question mark.
yeah. I
Like,
mean, if they did that, it would be going all in. I mean, they got, Zay Flowers, OBJ. You had one final piece, and you give Lamar all the pieces around him that he needs, and maybe that's their way of kind of taking advantage of the slow start that the Bengals are getting off to. But even then, it's
well, the
just like,
Bengals made a couple critical errors over the offseason and at the beginning of the year. It's costing them dearly. They didn't re-sign their O-line. They didn't go out and get new O-line because it was too expensive. That was their logic.
yeah,
Ask the Bears how that goes. And
oh, yeah,
and then or the Giants. You got to have some kind of O-line. And then the what's the Burrow gets hurt because the O-line can't block.
yeah.
Also, ask Aaron Rodgers about what it's like to have a bad O-line.
I
Um,
mean, yeah, that's
I was making this joke last night with some people that aren't affiliated with this show, just people I know, and we were watching the game, and I was like, you know how quarterbacks in the NFL typically get their O linemen like gifts every year? They'll buy them like Rolexes, or they'll like
yep.
have a party and invite everybody's families for their O
hmm
line, or they'll take them on vacation. It's
I
like, what do you
think
think Daniel
Prescott got
Jones? What do you think Daniel Jones gets his O line?
probably a bunch of medical bills, is what I would
I
say.
mean,
I would just send him all
my
the
buddy
medical
Joe has the
bills.
real answer here, which is hilarious because he came up with this way too fast. And the answer is cheesecloth. That's the answer, and I love that. That's the real. Yeah, you get him cheesecloth as a not so subtle dig. That's
Yeah.
what you do. I love it. I was like, Joe, you win. Congratulations, you won the game. You did it. That was. I don't have a better joke than that. That's the best one. All right, we did quarterback. We've covered that, and then yeah, Stafford if he's available, sure.
Yeah.
He's weird. He straddles that line between things that could be available in your guillotine league, but actually probably weirdly not because if
hmm
he's rostered, he probably already was. But he's definitely something to look at on the waiver wire because he is still right on the cut line of being available. And yeah, they're going to get Cooper Kupp back. Uh, Kyron Williams is looking good, so that's taking some of the pressure off. The Rams in general are making it happen with rubbing 2 quarters together trying to make a dollar. And that seems to be working. The weird that they paid Gerald Everett. That's the guy they paid. Like, all right, whatever. Like, you got the money. So, but I think the days of them paying running back are long gone. They're not going to do that anymore. And we've kind of transitioned already into the Jonathan Taylor elephant in the room. So we'll move into running back here fully. And I wanted to bring this up. Jose, I saw this on Sunday, and it's nice to see you back again. Lance, do you remember this conversation?
He was upset that he had Dalvin Cook.
Well, he was trying to see if he could trade Dalvin Cook.
Oh, he actually got
And we
something for him.
told him that was never going to happen. This is not formatted very well, Jose. But I will muddle what. But I saw it on Sunday, so I think I remember this because I posted it on the Sunday show as well. He actually managed to trade Dalvin Cook and something. I don't remember what, and it's not written here very well. For Brock Purdy and another tight end. So congratulations to you, because I don't know how you did that. I'm genuinely curious. I don't know how you did that, and it's weird and concerning. But what makes it more impressive, Lance, is that this is the league he plays in with all those crazy positional limits.
Oh gosh.
Where you have you're not allowed to have more than 4 active running backs. You're
Yeah, to
only
prevent
allowed to have
hoarding.
4 or 5
No, I
active wide
remember.
receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played in this league, and I never would.
Yeah.
I would literally politely decline. Thank you for thinking of me, but I'm not playing with this.
I'm good.
It's going to make me insanely angry.
Right.
This rule set's going to frustrate me into a coma. So
Well, hey, congrats for getting
Jose,
something for him.
Jose, congratulations. I mean that for real. I'm not even being like a pedantic dick. That's genuinely impressive. You should be proud of it. I don't know how you managed to sell someone what is effectively a handful of magic beans, straight out of a fable, but you did it, and you should consider possibly a career in sales, because that's genuinely impressive, because you convinced someone to do something that is actively against their own best interests. It's
Sold
not.
someone a lemon.
Yeah. Yeah. That is some real used car salesman stuff right there, man. That's unbelievable. Slap the hood on Dalvin Cook, and what do I need to do to get you in this bad boy today? I am genuinely impressed. But yeah, we talked about Jonathan Taylor. He might be coming back as early as this week. Who the hell knows? If you have him, are you playing him? Feel like you probably are.
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, at this point, you've had to have figured it out. If you're in dire straits, yeah, play him and see how they use him. But
Rashad White on bye. Ken Walker on bye.
Ken Walker? Yeah,
Seattle.
no, yeah.
It's Seattle. You're talking about things that are on bye. Rashad White is on bye this week. Ken Walker is on bye this week.
Yeah.
All of the Chargers running backs are on bye this week.
Yeah, if someone on bye is the reason you made it without him, then, I guess if you have no other choice, do it. But if you have the luxury of not having to play him, I definitely wouldn't, just because you don't know what's going to happen and how they're going to use him. And they've got Zach Moss in there getting a pretty good snap share right now. So
I want to know where this was in Buffalo. Where was it, Zach? You made me look like a real a-hole a couple years ago, and I want answers. I want to know where this came from, because I still remember recommending Zach Moss when he was in Buffalo and looking like an absolute clown that one year. That was really annoying. I want justice. and now it's going to be over as quickly as it started. For the record, Taylor opens in the ECR early rankings. It's Tuesday. So he opens, his opening ranking is RB 25. Not 25 overall, but RB 25. So top end of flex RB, effectively. It's part of why I bring this up, because we'll do this the fun way. Would you rather start Jonathan Taylor or Miles Sanders on one leg? That's a real choice people will be making. I can pretty much guarantee it.
Especially after
I'm not taking it easy on you, Lance. I'm taking the gloves off.
Especially after the week Chuba Hubbard just had too, where
he only really had a 6. I mean, he was involved.
No, but he's cutting it more and more into.
Well, it's the groin. If Sanders was fully healthy, he would bury Chuba Hubbard in the desert, but he's not. His groin is already messed up, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because you got decisions to make this week.
Yeah, this is one where you don't have the luxury of choice. I would go with Jonathan Taylor, because Oh,
Jose, you're not. Believe me, buddy. I already knew this information, and I know you're watching this. So that's one. And if you haven't noticed, I'll do the show for who's ever in the audience, and then two, you are not the only person. I've already had more Jonathan Taylor questions in 48 hours than I've probably had in his entire pro career up to this point. So there you go. Yeah. I do this for like Jose's been with us, Lance. If you can't tell, Jose's been with us for years. He's a regular and he's a member. So he gets
Right.
let through the velvet rope. Him and Polo and Chuck, and then straight cash homie, Aaron Cantu. There's a handful of people that I if I see them, I'm like, nah, we walk them up to the front. Like they pay. They get to go to the front of the line. Like
Right.
yeah, we saw. We already talked about this, Jose. We already covered it. We're very impressed. And that's not even me being a sarcastic dick. Like, we're genuinely
No.
impressed. Like, I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you slapped the hood of Dalvin Cook and went full used car salesman to get that done, but it's genuinely impressive. So, anyway, let's focus on Jonathan Taylor here because I'm all over the road, and that's my apologies, Lance. I'm weaving in and out of different thoughts here. You never answered my question about Miles Sanders.
I said at that point you don't have the luxury of choice, and you got to go with Jonathan Taylor.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
you're dealing with an injured running back there.
All right. So I have more names. I have more. Khalil Herbert, go.
Herbert, I think, is showing the upside, this past week. So I'd be a little encouraged to start Herbert this week.
All right. That's that one I could see being more of a conversation. Najee Harris. 3 dud games and then a good game last week. Both running backs in Pittsburgh had a good game last week, I would argue.
Yeah. I'd go with Najee. I don't feel good about it, but I'd still go with him.
What about Jaylen Warren? I'm intentionally picking the hardest names. Like,
I want to say Jaylen Warren, but for the sake that he might have more upside, I would go Jonathan Taylor.
I think we're probably playing Jonathan Taylor in that arena. Gus Edwards. This should be
Gus
easy.
Edwards.
Yeah, okay. And then assuming he's not hurt again. And then we'll do one more. We'll do one more just because it's going to come up here again in a second. Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yeah. John Taylor.
Okay. All right. Because, yeah, I mean, you're in this weird boat with Jonathan Taylor where I would actually I would start him over Sanders just because Sanders is just gimpy. And I watched a good amount of that game, and he's just gimpy. That's why they're not giving him his normal job. It's not that Chuba Hubbard is that much better. He played well-ish. He played neighborhood of good. Little above average. But I would argue that's Chuba Hubbard's entire career.
Just about, yeah. He's always he's been that Alexander Madison type, the Khalil Herbert type, where he's been behind a good back his entire career, and then all of a sudden it's like just when you expect a little bit from him, he just kind of disappoints.
But I would I see this a little differently because you got to go this week at running back is a mess. I mean, you've got the top 10 is pretty well sorted. You know what I mean? You're still probably good there. But by the time you get to 15, you're back to Aaron Jones and a possibly suspended James Conner. Hopefully not suspended. And then you've got it gets real ugly at about 20. Because at about 20, you're getting into Saquon Barkley, if he's going to play. We don't know. If he is, great. If he's not, then he gets removed from the pile. Ramondre Stevenson, that's less his fault and more the Patriots are bad. And then you get into the Breece Halls, Jahmyr Gibbs of the world, where it's Breece Hall. I might play Breece Hall if I had to, because he's looking a little bit better progressively, and he is kind of killing Dalvin Cook officially. That didn't take long. Right now, Breece Hall is averaging about 6.5 yards per carry.
How much of that is because of his week 1?
I understand that's not the most scientific thing I've ever said, but just for the sake of the argument, Breece Hall is averaging about 6.5 yards per carry. What do you think Dalvin Cook averages currently for the season?
I would go sub 3. I'm gonna go 2.2.
It's 2.5. So you are
2.5. There we go.
You were correct. You just
in
didn't
the ballpark.
Win. You just didn't get the prices right. Well, actually, you did, because he was 2.2 and you didn't go over. But
I didn't go. All right. I'll take
so
it.
that's and then you get into like Madison,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get into
Shot White.
Pierce. No, Rashad White's on bye.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's what the whole point of this whole
These
exercise.
buys are.
That's the
Yeah.
whole point of this exercise,
They
my
feel
friend. It's
too
where I started.
soon.
It's where I started with this. Is that you're missing the Seattle running backs, the Chargers running backs, Ford from Cleveland, and White. So you're removing like 7 guys out of this
Right.
pile. The pile can't remove 7 guys. The pile was already bad. This is why we're having this conversation about like, would you play Jonathan Taylor? Because I'm sitting here like, I would need to know who my other options are. But if you're telling me that like my options are Jonathan Taylor or Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm probably playing Taylor because they refuse to give Gibbs the entire workload. And I'm just going to hope like hell that Taylor gets in and falls into the end zone twice. I don't know. It also would depend. This is where it gets tough because it also depends on what my matchup is. Am I projected to win? If I'm projected to win and I feel good about that, then I'm 100% going to play Gibbs because we're not playing this stupid game about what do I need. You know what I mean? But if I'm projected to get my you know what kicked and I'm going down, I'd probably be more inclined to play Taylor because there's every chance he shows up and he's capital J, capital T, Jonathan Taylor. So there's a lot of nuance to this decision right now, and it's getting in there when I'm dealing with the start sit questions and we're taking them live. I almost need to know like what your other options are, and then I can tell you because I'm not. I agree with you as far as this, Lance. I'm not putting Jonathan Taylor in just because he's back. If you've already figured it out, you know what I mean? Like you were saying at the top of this conversation. If you've already figured it out, because you probably did by now, go with that for at least one more week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you manage to fall into like you're not, you're playing Kyron Williams. You know what I mean? If you manage to win that lottery, you're doing that. So, but I also am of the mind like I am not benching Jonathan Taylor to play Jaleel McLaughlin.
No.
That's not happening. Like
No.
sharing a job with Samaje Perine, like no, we're not doing that. But I would probably play Jonathan Taylor over Miles Sanders just because he's beat up. And Herbert to me is the Mendoza line. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and that's where I don't envy anybody who has to make that exact decision because I wouldn't want to make that one. That's almost like a true coin flip. I have them like right next to each other. It's challenging. So there's that. So that's the Jonathan Taylor roundup. And basically what we're saying is we think Jonathan Taylor is somewhere between a very low end RB2 and a very high end flex.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhere in there. But you have to prepare yourself mentally for the idea that he could literally get you like a 2. Because they just try to ease him in and Zach Moss has played fine. And so they don't want to just rush him back on very little prep coming off his couch. But at the same time, I also could see the argument. I could make that stupid narrative back to you the other way, Lance. We don't care what Jonathan Taylor is. He does. If we're the Colts, he doesn't want to be here anyway. I want to get the maximum value I can out of him before I lose my ability to get anything and he walks for nothing in the offseason. So get in there and run through that brick wall because I need these other NFL teams to see how good you still are so I can get some sort of deal done before the October deadline. I could make that argument too.
Yeah, I could see, a little pressure coming from ownership to kind of do that and just kind of make sure that, they try to recuperate some of their value for him because right now it feels like they severely overestimated the market for what they would get for that.
They just don't. It's not even. I don't even necessarily think it's Jonathan Taylor's fault.
No, it's not.
It's just running back as a position.
Yeah.
Is a dumpster fire. They don't want to
Yeah.
pay them. The only ones who get paid is like Christian McCaffrey. Nobody else gets paid. Like,
and that's only because he catches passes.
Yeah, I was
so,
saying, worth every penny. Worth every red cent he gets. So it's how it goes. But this week is brutal at running back, not just for what we've already covered as it relates to Jonathan Taylor. because I wanted to do a proper like full Jonathan Taylor breakdown because I cannot stress to you how many questions I've gotten about this already, and it's freaking Tuesday. But if we go back through and do non-Jonathan Taylor running back information, who do you like this week coming off the? We'll do traditional waiver first, and then we'll do guys that might be available. Oh, for Jonathan Taylor, to put a bow on it, do not start Jonathan Taylor in your Guillotine League. For the love of God, that's a huge blunder. Don't do that. You have any idea how desperate I would need to be to start JT in a Guillotine League?
Yeah.
I can't deal with that level of I would have to have every other running back would have to be either hurt or on bye.
Yeah, you got to be in dire straits in order to fire him up as your hope to not get chopped. So
Yeah, that seems like a great way to get chopped. Actually,
yeah,
is overestimating early returns on Taylor. Lance, who do you like as far as non Jonathan Taylor running backs that could be picked up? Let's do traditional waiver first. So who's widely available that you want to recommend?
between Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, if either one of them are, I'd play a little roulette and try to end up with. You're gonna end up with someone who's gonna be a starter, and it's not the most exciting option. You've seen this with both of them before, and they haven't really wowed you all the time, but eventually it's going to be one of those two who comes out on top. It's not going to be Melvin Gordon. So I would definitely be pursuing them. Like you said, Sanders is banged up. Chuba is an option. And
I have Chuba at 3.
if Kenneth Gainwell's out there, it seems like he's cutting a little bit into DeAndre Swift's time. So I mean, it kind of gets a little murky.
Define that statement for me. What does that mean?
I mean, they're getting more of the snaps. When Kenneth Gainwell's in there, DeAndre played the first 2 drives, and then Kenneth Gainwell came in, and second half it was kind of more of the same. They didn't really stick with one. They kind of went one drive.
So my
Swift
argument is not that he's cutting into his time. This is functioning as they intended to. They're breaking that job down 55, 45, 60, 40 in favor of Swift. He has the slight edge.
right.
That's on a per snap basis. I broke it down the last 2 weeks. The first week it was almost the first week they were both healthy. Week 3, not counting week 1. Throw week 1 away. Week 1 is terrible. Don't get into that. Week 3 was the first time they were both healthy and on the field together, and we were trying to monitor the snaps. It was almost identical, dead 50-50 the first week. And Swift was just slightly more efficient. The reason that it matters is because even with half the job, you're playing Swift at this point, given the position, the state of the running back position. Like Swift is a top 10 running back with half that job. If he ever got the whole job.
You saw what he did last year when they were playing Williams all the time. I mean, he still finished, as at least a running back 2 for you in fantasy.
And believe it or not, the Eagles are significantly better than the Lions. I know everybody's very infatuated with the Lions, but the Eagles are better. And Gainwell is getting the 45, 50, between 40 and 50% of the remainder, which I agree does make him rosterable and potentially valuable. But that's why I wanted you to clarify, like cutting into the workload. I don't think he is. I don't view it as cutting into the workload. I think he has his own standalone job. I think that's that's how I'm breaking it down. Is it's not Swift's job and Gainwell stealing eggs out of the basket. That's what Latavius Murray is doing to Cook. This to me is like, no, this is how they intend it. Is I think they're concerned that if they gave Swift the whole load, he'd be on IR by midway through the year. You know what I mean? That's also the hallmark of DeAndre Swift's career is super electric and then gets whacked, and that's the end of it. So I think they want Gainwell to do some of that dirty work for them. But is he available enough to actually, like, I don't even know. What is Kenny Gainwell's roster percentage? This is the second time you've done this to me today already. You've done it twice. While I look that up, continue, please. Keep it rolling.
Yeah, I mean, after that,
It was Ravens.
just
Your
kinda
recommendations were Ravens RB and Kenny Gainwell, if I recall. Just to point that out for the audience at home.
Gainwell and Hubbard.
Okay, and Hubbard. Okay, Hubbard is 3.
Yeah, Hubbard would be 3, Gainwell would be 2, and then Ravens RBs tied for 1.
Okay. I am way less enthusiastic about the Ravens RB situation. Always have been, always will be. This is just not something that I particularly want to deal with in the background, but I just don't like the headache of having to figure it out. It actually drives me up a wall. So I'm not going that direction. For me, with all the crap that has gone on with this, it's actually going to be Jaleel McLaughlin, but there are like 3 asterisks that I'm going to go through right now. 1, the more accurate way to explain this idea is Broncos running back. But Samaje Perine doesn't really qualify for this conversation because he's been rostered in too many leagues from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
McLaughlin is interesting because he has caught the eye of that coaching staff. And even when Javonte was healthy, they were trying to work McLaughlin in because they seem to like what he offers as a pass catcher and as a pass blocker, but seems like it's more of the first thing. He's pretty good at catching them dump offs. And because we primarily talk about PPR, always high up on my agenda is looking for pass catching running back. Always a thing. That's why I have so many Rachaad White shares. That's why I have so many James Cook shares. I have a type. It's a thing. It is what it is. It's goth women with blue hair and tattoos and pass catching running back. Okay, Lance? That's the order. That's what we like over here. The other thing that I will point out is McLaughlin post Hubbard leaving that game. Ooh, boy, did his snap percentage just skyrocket. The second he was out of that game, and he's not going to get that 20-yard touchdown every week, but he has my attention. This is not just something for Guillotine. This is something that I'm talking about. Like, this is how you get Wally pipped. You know what I mean? Most people. What's funny is I find people that don't know what that's a reference to an actual guy. Wally pipped is not some sort of nebulous expression. That's a reference to a guy who got hurt and lost his job in baseball like 100 years ago. That's what this is. And he I've seen the Broncos for too long get into this different regime now, but they do this. Like, they'll get infatuated with something like this, and then suddenly you got Philip Lindsay running around like crazy. So you run into weird things like this. But McLaughlin to me is like, it's a stash and hold. I'm interested. And if it's not going to be expensive is the other fun thing about this, because no one's going to care. No one's going to care. They're going to be trying to kill each other for the other stuff that's available. So this is the kind of thing that you can do cheap. And this is something that I'm recommending as a stash and hold. Let's hold this for a couple weeks and see what we get. It's kind of a mystery right now, but there's a tremendous amount of upside if he's going to get all the passing down work on a team that's going to be chasing points all year, that actually looks healthier than what they did last year. And they're not winning games, but Russell Wilson at least looks competent again. So that's a feather in your cap. Number 2 for me is Tajay Spears. I'm going to keep talking about it until this rostership percentage moves up. So we've talked about Tajay Spears how many weeks in a row now, Lance? What do you think? All of them?
Feels like every week.
Yeah. What do you suppose his roster percentage is at this point? Aggregate is what I'm doing.
Probably about 20%.
22. Not nearly high enough. Not nearly high enough. This is the kind of thing that if I have Derrick Henry, I'm immediately going to roster Tajay Spears. And if I don't have Derrick Henry, I'm going to roster Tajay Spears and trade him to the guy who has Derrick Henry. This is free real estate, folks. It's not hard. I'm not that smart. I have the test scores to prove it. Like, that's like, I'm not that bright, man. Like, I'm smart enough to see this though. And then number 3 is Chuba Hubbard. Three is Chuba Hubbard for sure, for largely the same reasons you've already illustrated. So I'm not gonna go back through all of that again. And then number 4 is Elijah Mitchell, because y'all just keep making the same mistake over and over and over again, and that needs to be a lot higher. And then I've got some other recommendations too, but they're lower down the totem pole. Rico Dowdle is a name to keep an eye on. Don't know if I'm ready to put a claim in yet, but definitely a name to keep an eye on. He's getting a lot more work in Dallas. Definitely someone you should know who it is. Jeff Wilson coming back from IR. Would be willing to put a waiver claim in on that, and I've already been recommending you should have done that for $1 a couple weeks ago. Put him on your IR slot. And I had one more. Oh yeah, here it is. Jamal Williams is coming back soon, and he's dropped below 50%. So that is something worth looking into. And then okay, so Lance, let's talk about who's underperforming that could help you on your guillotine. Who likely got chopped that we want to recommend people to go look at.
I mean, if the team with Aaron Jones got chopped, putting up a pretty stinker on Thursday night, probably.
I'd put up $50 on Aaron Jones. I'll tell you that right now.
I'd probably go 150 and just bite the bullet for the next week, just because I'd put him in that. There's the top 6 running backs that you can get in fantasy, and then there's kind of everyone else, and he belongs right in that tier. So if you're able to get him, it's a no-brainer for me. Maybe someone with Chiefs running back got cut. McKinnon, I'd probably be more inclined to over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but
I want no part of CEH. I think CEH is dead duck. But
yeah.
I do hold out a little bit of hope for McKinnon. And the nice thing about McKinnon is that he would be very, very inexpensive at this point. So that would be a good stash. I agree with you there.
No, I think most people think that Pacheco is just running away with the job just by what he did, but they use McKinnon.
You get what he's doing, people? He's doing high-level comedy over here.
Yeah, no, McKinnon definitely they use him quite a bit, so
they like him when they have to go hurry up. Although I am a little concerned that Pacheco might just bury everyone. You ain't getting Pacheco. They didn't get chopped.
No.
I'll tell you that right now. That didn't happen.
Roshan Johnson's another name on here that might have not survived, but at that one, it kind of got a little more murky with how they used Herbert this past week. So it feels like week to week, they're just, the first couple drives, they'll split it out and then go with the hot hand from there. And so, if you're good enough to have a stash, I would go Roshan. But if you're looking for a starter, I would maybe try to prioritize some of the other names on the list. Aside from that, I don't think Stevenson, Pollard, Connor, Mixon had a bad enough week to kill you, but I don't think they probably won you a week. So
if they were available, I would.
There's a chance.
I would make claims on any of those guys if they were available, especially Connor. Connor would be 1. Stevenson, I think, would be 2. No, he would be 3. It'd be no, it'd be Pollard, Connor, Stevenson. That's the way it would go for me if those guys were available. And I would actually pay a pretty penny for Tony Pollard if he was somehow sitting out there. I would actually be willing to try to bend one of my own rules and exceed my $75 maximum for Pollard because I believe in it long term. That's the kind of thing that I'd be willing to put up at least $100 on, probably more. But it's also the kind of thing somebody would be willing to blow half their fab on and then probably get chopped later, and then I can get Pollard anyway because I still have money. I have a few more. Saquon Barkley, been killing you all year. It's entirely possible that that person finally bit it last week. Saquon was coming back. Take a look at that. Not only is he potentially healthy or trending towards being healthy, he has an amazing matchup. That is about as good as it gets when it comes to running back matchup because they're playing Miami, and it's like Miami doesn't even bother to try and stop the run. So it's like, why? Who cares? So no, that's a good one, and they need him. They being the Giants, they need him bad. They need They need him. They need him like a fat guy needs Atkins. Like that. That is just like that wasn't my best analogy, but it was effective. And then the other one is, and then hold on to your butts for this because this one will be fascinating. But I guarantee you this applies. David Montgomery, because David
Yeah.
Montgomery was hurt, and then I will bet you anything that very few people actually started him last week. In fact, I know this because it was the most common thing on Thursday night last week in our Discord was, well, should have played Montgomery. And that was like the byline for that entire weekend was, yep, should have played Montgomery. 3 touchdowns on my bench.
Yeah, I decided that it would be a good decision to put Aaron Jones in over Montgomery, and I never knew that would be the one probably stupidest decision I
I would have
made all
probably done the
year.
same. Would have probably done the same thing. Would have probably done the same thing, man. I'm not even. I can't even blame you. Like you're at that point, you're picking between guys that are both hurt in the
Yeah,
same game,
right.
and it's like, all right, well, what do I do here? And the idea at the time was, oh no, Montgomery will be on a snap count, and they'll be throwing dump offs to Aaron Jones because they don't have any other offense. None of that happened. David
No.
Montgomery beat the Packers by himself. Other fun fact about David Montgomery: after tearing the Packers a new orifice on Thursday Night Football, he gets a long week to get healthier and then prepare to play Carolina, which is the worst run defense in football. So that's fun. So and I'm buying into David Montgomery for the season. So this is another
Mhm.
one where it's like I'd be willing to break one of my own rules here, pay up, because this is one that I really want. Like I'm willing to plant my flag right here, and if we die, we die. That's fine. This is the hill. We got to die somewhere. Might as well be here. So that's another one that I want people to be aware of because it would be very easy to assume that whoever had David Montgomery, you might not even look. You know what I mean? It's worth looking and seeing if that's available to you. But anybody else that's that high up is probably still rostered, including Madison, as frustrating as that is. And yeah, beyond that, my only other note for running back is for the love of God, people go pick up Jalen Warren. I don't understand what's difficult about this. I really don't get why this is a hard concept. We talk about it 3 nights a week as part of this platform. It's not hard, and you can cut AJ Dillon. He stinks. I would cut
Yeah.
AJ Dillon for Chuba Hubbard. I would cut AJ Dillon for Kenny Gainwell. I would cut AJ Dillon for Tyler Algier. I would cut AJ Dillon for Zach Moss, for Jaleel McLaughlin, for Gus Edwards, certainly for Jalen Warren. These are all things that are largely available. All available. You don't have to live with AJ Dillon. You don't have to. You don't have to keep doing it to yourself. It's okay sometimes just to cut bait on a bad investment and just move on with your life. Like, anyway.
Yeah, the only other one I can think is out there that might have not got played is Khalil Herbert. He had a solid game,
Yeah,
and
it's a good one.
he's another one that some people might have left on their bench. And if he can continue to build off of what he just showed in this game, I think he could be the one that earns carries in games going forward.
Very well could be. All right, let's do wide receiver. Let's move into wideout. Wideout, slim pickings again here, with all the buys and various other different things. But we do have a couple, as always, and so I'll rattle this off here. My number one is Marvin Mims,
Hmm.
only rostered still in we'll call it 30% of leagues on aggregate. And Mims is a pickup in all formats: guillotine, non-guillotine, whatever you got. Like he's number one, and it's not the most consistent thing I've ever seen in my life. But I'm getting to the point now where it's like, okay, they're gonna start figuring out how to get him the ball more. He's earning more share. So I'd be interested in that. That's number one. Number two is Michael Wilson. I teased it earlier. We were going to talk about it. Dobbs has been very efficient, And Wilson is starting to kind of earn his trust, and he's getting more snaps. His usage has been going up every single week, which is what you want to see from a rookie. And he's cutting into Zach Ertz's job, and he's cutting into Hollywood Brown's job. And as somebody who's never been a fan of Hollywood Brown, going back to when he was a Raven, I am all in on somebody taking away Hollywood Brown's job because Hollywood's not that good. He never has been. He's one of the luckiest human beings I've ever seen. He should be buying lotto tickets, and it's one of those deals. So no, I'm in. I'm very much in on Michael Wilson. He would be number 2. Again, that's guillotine. That's pretty much all formats. I'm good with that. And then number 3 is Jameson Williams, which I am less enthused by because this is going to take a second for him to get integrated into the offense. He's effectively trying to take Josh Reynolds' job, and it's like Reynolds hasn't done anything to lose that job yet. So Williams is going to have to actually like get on the field and outperform him. Because at this point, I don't think I don't know how. You never know with Dan Campbell is the other thing. You're trying to figure out what Dan Campbell's going to do. Good luck. I mean, I don't even know half time if Dan Campbell knows what Dan Campbell's going to do. So that's my top 3. Number 4, we talked about him a whole bunch of times. Is Jaden Reed. I'm gonna keep bringing this up. He's tremendous. It's a shame that he plays for the team that he plays for, and he's a stash. If you need a win now guy, that's not Jaden Reed. If you need win now guys, that's Mims and Wilson. Third place is Jameson Williams because that'll eventually come good. Jaden Reed is more like a stash. Like I think he's got a real shot at taking over the lion's share of that work. And then similar, if you need a win now, what's his name? I have it here and I literally can't read my own handwriting. Which is always the sign of Tyler Boyd.
Yep.
Tyler Boyd, when T. Higgins doesn't play, moves up significantly. So, and T. Higgins' rib injury might not miss any time, might miss up to 3 weeks. Don't know. It's all about pain tolerance. And also, they look like crap anyway. So that's also why he's not higher up the list. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he would be higher up the list, Lance. I'd have him probably in the top 3 pretty well because we've seen what he can do in the background. And then if you're looking for other advice, I've got a few that I think are kind of fun. That if you're looking for like stashes that I think might be fun. Rashid Shaheed, who I will continue to bring up because I love it. And that's not a win now thing. That's like I have an open roster spot and I can wait for Carr to get back. Rashid Shaheed, he's still widely available in leagues, and that's just. I used to say I didn't get it. Now I get it more when Carr's not playing. Now he was droppable there for a minute. It was Rashid Shaheed, and the last one is Josh Downs, who just slowly continues to work his way into more of that job as the actual slot for the Colts. And Richardson likes looking his way. I mean, I'm doing this from memory, but I'm pretty confident he led the Colts in targets last week. I could double check that. But while I double check that actually and see if I need to correct that statement, who do you like? Who's available that you like?
I mean, you brought up Jaden Reed, excuse me. Is Romeo Doubs still under that margin?
No, Doubs is over the line. Doubs is over the line. That finally ticked over last week.
Yeah.
So you don't get to do Doubs anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had to have this conversation with Jason too, so you're not the only one. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, because a couple different platforms have him still under that line. So.
Well, I'm sure on some individual platforms he is. So that you got to check your individual league. That's always the advice. I mean, we can't tell you what your actual league is.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, you brought up some solid names there. I'd probably go, Mims, Boyd, Wilson, and probably Williams in that order.
Okay.
of the
Boy,
names you
Wilson's
brought up.
winning me over, man. I
Yeah.
saw a lot of that game, and he is winning me over little by little. Could you imagine if he had a real quarterback? That was too mean. That was too mean. I have nothing but I can't. I shouldn't make jokes like that about Dobbs, who's actually like looks competent at this point. But anybody else?
Yeah, no, out of the guys available, I think
Neither
those
one of
are.
us mentioned Quentin Johnson.
He's kind of one of those that I'm worried he's going to fall in the category of the Laquan Treadwell or the Jalen Rager. It seems like they're not really using him a ton, and he's got nothing but opportunity right now. And yeah, I'd be a little hesitant on that, whether it's just your standard fantasy league or a guillotine.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. All right, and then yeah, we'll do guillotine hits real quick because wide receiver is always weird with this. But leading the chart, it's got to be Chris Olave, right?
I'd probably Mike Evans had a pretty bad game. If he's available, I'd put him over Olave.
Okay, I guess that's fair. Because you won't. Mike Evans is coming into the bye, but
Hmm.
he won't survive. So I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Because if you try to get cute and wait, you probably will strike out on that. All right, I could get down on that.
Hmm.
Um, on some Mike Evans because we don't know. The only issue with Mike Evans is we don't know how long he's going to be out.
Right.
Doesn't seem that serious. Take it from another guy who's on the wrong side of 30 though, and you pull a hamstring and it doesn't heal the way it used to when you're 20 and you're made out of magic. So we'll have to see how that goes. Chris Godwin to the moon. In the
Yeah.
background with Mike Evans not there.
Hmm.
Okay, so then do you have Olave too then?
Olave would be two. T. Higgins if he's out there.
Okay, that would have been my three. So now we're just moving through the list pretty expeditiously here. Chris Olave for me is just to put a fine point on it for the audience is a nice stash because at some point Carr will be back.
Right.
Doesn't help you short term, but would be something that I would put $35 on, maybe 40. And then I would just kind of throw him on my team, and then at some point Carr will be back. Higgins is the same story. I'd actually probably pay a little. I'd probably put about $40 for Higgins. That's not. I love T Higgins. Check my dynasty rosters to tell you how much I love T Higgins. The issue is that for Guillotine that's killing you because he's now hurt and the team looks terrible. So, but I'm
Hmm.
still willing to put a bid in and stash it as that rolls along. Who do you have after Higgins? So I
If
haven't.
Amari Cooper's out there, he would definitely
Okay,
be
that's a good
someone I
one.
would I would consider. And you kind of get into your other names who had a bad week. George Pickens, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Tutu Atwell. But the name that really jumps off the page to me is Tank Dell. I mean, at this point, I'm going full speed ahead. If I can get any piece of that Texans offense, I'm kind of intrigued at this point.
Really
It doesn't look like they're slowing
weird,
down.
weird season.
It is.
Weird so far. You totally just blew past Debo Samuel, which is where I was actually preparing to stop because
Hmm.
Debo Samuel put up 0.6, and
Oh,
that I
jeez. Yeah.
I I uh, I won a couple games last week, not in Guillotine, but in other games because of that. So I
Hmm.
guarantee you that people got chopped because of Debo Samuel because oh he's playing decoy. Put him out
Yep.
there to be the decoy, and then Brandon Ayuk just ran down their throat. And that happens. That'd be like that. I really wish they would have sat Debo and just gave him the week off and just featured Kittle a little more. But I'm not Shanahan, and I never will
Yeah.
be. Um, so that's one of those deals where that that would be relatively up my same kind of neighborhood as Olave and T Higgins, like $40 is like, yep, I would do that. Of them, I would have Samuel last, but that's largely because Samuel is on the most crowded offense.
Mhm.
There's just too many weapons with the 49ers, so you kind of don't know what you're fully getting week to week. But if he got chopped, I would pick him up 100%. Calvin Ridley is another one that if he got chopped, I would take a look. But I'll be honest with you, that's more like in the $5 to $10 range at this point because he has been brutal and his target share has been declining, and Jacksonville's been brutal. So I'm less
Yeah.
interested in that, but it's a thing that could be out there. And then yeah, I'm less interested in Jacoby Myers. I heard you mention Jacoby Myers in the background, largely because the Raiders terrify me.
They do, but the one thing they do have is volume. I mean, if you have Jacobs, Adams, Myers, those guys are going to get theirs week in and week out. As terrible as the on-field product may be, you're still getting a decent amount of volume from every single one of them. So I mean, as long as you don't
Unless
have
Madden create a character, Anthony, what's his face out there getting people killed. I'm sorry, Madden create a character, Aiden O'Connell. I'll do my own joke properly.
Yeah.
Because I watched how he was playing and he nearly broke Devontae Adams' shoulder. And if I was Devontae Adams, I'd have been having a word with him about it on the sideline. Because that ball never should have been. It's like when I watched Taylor Heineke get Terry McLaurin a concussion. Because he threw it into triple coverage on a ball that never should have left his hand. And he gets his guy killed. Same thing with that play. Like, never should have left his hand. But he's the one I want. That's the problem with the whole Raiders thing. I don't know. If I was going to be willing to put in a bid on Myers, I would need to be pretty hard up for wide receiver. It probably wouldn't be a huge bid. I do like the George Pickens one though that you brought up. Kenny Pickett will be back, and when Kenny Pickett is back, George Pickens has value in the background. So I'm with you on that. And then you had one other one that I heard you go through. Oh, it was Tank Dell. Everybody agrees on Tank Dell. The universe agrees on that. Like, if by some miracle Tank Dell was on the team that got chopped, yeah, go pick him up again. Yeah. The Houston's offense it makes me want a cocktail. I'll tell you that much right now, because it's like it's weird. It's butt ugly, but it's also like just barely working, and it's like there's value to be had there,
Right.
because you actually watch those games and it's butt ugly. Nothing looks clean. Everything looks difficult, but it's working. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, all right, like, I don't understand, but okay. Like, Mama never said I was going to understand everything in life. And yeah, and then I'll keep bringing it up until mathematically I don't have to anymore. But Adam Thielen.
Yeah, that shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, and it still is a thing. I'd absolutely be good, especially in Guillotine. I doubt he got chopped, but I'll keep bringing it up. Adam Thielen, like, that should be a thing that your roster. And before we move to tight end and then look to kind of shut her down for the day, we did have a question from Jose. Should I trade Judy? I mean, yeah, I probably would do that.
Right.
The problem is that for what and to who?
Yeah. They throw it enough in Denver, and they're looking halfway competent. We're just wait for Judy to have a big game and then get a little more value on him than if you try to just ship him off right now for a bag of chips.
That's the issue, is that you've waited this long to get to get him back, and now he's playing again. And he hasn't been great, but at least he's been putting up close to double digits every week.
Right.
And it's what's killing him is Mims is now who they're throwing to down the field, which Judy used to do a fair amount of. He's not doing that right now. Whether that's injury or scheme, I couldn't tell you, but it's Mims is who they want down the field. And then Cortland Sutton is literally doing what I predicted he might do in the he's Michael Thomas. He's working in the red zone. He's working the middle of the field. He's a big body that Russell Wilson likes to throw it to in stressful situations. It's the exact job I thought he'd have. He's actually looks healthy for the first time since 2019, which is crazy. Took him 5 years to heal his leg, but he did it. So it's tough to say. Like that's kind of the issue here. So I think Jerry Jeudy is worth something like, if you want to stay in position, he's worth something like Jordan Addison.
I'd rather have Addison.
Well, so would I. That's kind of the point, though.
Yeah.
Would you trade but would you trade Jeudy for Addison straight up?
If
you have
I'm
Jeudy,
getting Addison,
you're getting Addison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I would too. So,
yeah.
And now's a good time to do that because Addison just put up a 0.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point to you, is like, if you're staying in position, it's easier to figure this out. But that's kind of where I'm at. Is like, Jerry Jeudy is worth broadly Jordan Addison these days. Here's my point to you, Jose. If you wait, Jerry Jeudy could be worth more than Jordan Addison. Or he could be worth nothing. There's that risk you run. How the hell do I know? How the hell do I know that? You think I know every league? I know the one team you have pretty well, but like I don't know every team. Here we'll pick I'll pick a different name. I don't want that though. I don't want that either. I don't want that. I don't want that. I think you might be able to talk somebody into Tank Dell, but it depends on who has Tank Dell. It's like you might be able to do that. The other guys that you're looking at is like Tutu Atwell, but I don't want that. Again, I reference my. How do I know this? Like the okay. You know what you could do? You could get Dobbs, but I don't know that I would do that.
I mean, I think he's kind of more in the DeAndre Hopkins, Alan Lazard, Kendrick Bourne. So I mean, at that point, you're really just
where the hell do you have DeAndre Hopkins rated? Because that's nowhere near where DeAndre Hopkins gets rated weekly in the ECR.
He's not around the wide receiver 40.
No. No, DeAndre Hopkins opens the week at wide receiver 26. What planet do you live on?
Jesus.
Like that, his name, it says Hopkins on the back of the jersey. And until that doesn't happen anymore, he's going to be in the top 30.
Yeah. I'm just talking about what I'd value and what people.
I value Jerry Jeudy at around wide receiver 34, 35.
I have him at 40.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So I'm slightly higher than you, but I'm actually a little closer to the ECR. So if we go by public perception, that's what's kind of hard to deal with. Like I can work with the ECR because I can deal with it. By your rankings, 40 is not crazy. I mean, you're like 5 spots off. Like it's not
right.
It's not like this massive insult or anything. It's just the issue is you're trying to trade up the ladder, but my version of up the ladder is a little different because I'm talking about trying to get up to like wide receiver 30 if you could, but it depends on what perception is of Jerry Jeudy. And this is why I was saying, Jose, what I might do is just hold on for another couple weeks. You hope he has like a 2-touchdown game and then ship him then at the top of his value. Something like that. If you go outside of position, I think you're talking about like, this is where it gets really ugly because running back is such crap that I think you might be like realistically, like maybe you could get Khalil Herbert, except that would have been easier before last week.
Yeah, I think pretty much for that you're probably in the guys we recommended on the waiver wire between Tajay Spears, Elijah Mitchell. I mean,
but you can pick that up
in
half these leagues. You don't need to trade for that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're, so at that point, you just got to hold.
Well, here's what you do. If you're in that mode, what you do. Oh, that was Spanish. Sorry, that dovetailed into Spanish at the end of that. Uh, you might not have to hold, but what I'm trying to convey to you is doing a straight up 1-for-1 is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want Addison, and then I think that deal is pretty easy to do, to be honest. I think you could probably make that happen coming off the 0. But you don't need or want Addison in this format, this league you're playing in. So what you got to do is you got to start looking at like 2-for-1s. And you start playing it that way. So you take Jerry Jeudy and you staple it to something else, and you try to improve that way. If we accept the idea that Jerry Jeudy is worth roughly wide receiver 35, I'll split the difference with you, Lance. He's worth about wide receiver 35, right? Something like that. That gives you a baseline. So you've got what is effectively a flex wide receiver, right? But what low end wide receiver 3 is actually probably more real. Take that and you staple something else to it that you have, and then you're looking at what are teams that have positions of need. You know what I mean? So you start looking for guys that either are losing badly and need depth, or you're looking for guys that are winning and have a piece to spare that they don't need and might want depth for their playoff run. That's what you're looking for in that arrangement. Or you're trying to hold on for a couple more weeks and try to shop Jerry Jeudy as a one-off, like as a 1-for-1. I just think trying to do a 1-for-1 right now is going to be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can do like a creative 2-for-1, that might be more doable. And again, look for guys that they're 0-3 or 0-4, I should say, or whatever. You know, they're 1-3. Team looks like crap, and they need to make a move to stay relevant. And they need like guys that they can play because they're a mass unit of injuries, and they're willing to give you one good player to get 2 pretty good players just so they can roll the team together. Or you're doing it the other way. You're looking for a team that's like 4-0, 3-1, and they're loaded, and they have like an extra piece they don't need that you can take, and then you can give them 2 pieces so they can increase their depth for the playoff run for the second half of the year. That's how I think you would approach that as we go through this right now. Lance, let's do tight end real quick and let's go eat dinner. That makes it sound like I'm having dinner at your house, but that's not what I mean. But as far as tight end goes, I'm just gonna speed through this because it's super ugly. It's uglier than normal with the buys. Number 1 tight end pickup is Luke Musgrave. As much as it makes me want to throw up in my mouth, that's literally how bad it is right now. Luke Musgrave was knocked out with a concussion, so something to monitor. But that's literally the state of tight end waiver wire right now. It's that ugly. And then the other ones are Logan Thomas, which no one's going to go, ooh, we got Logan Thomas. But he's out there. He's healthy again. They're looking for him. It's not pretty, but such is the reality of tight end waivers. And then number 3 is Cade Otton. Cade Otton actually possibly, I wrote this list last night, very late at night. And as you can tell, I get tired when we get to tight end because I literally don't care. Cade Otton might actually need to be higher on this list, but it would be Cade Otton, as ugly as it is. Well, that also is not helping you because he's on bye if you need a streamer. And then it's Jonnu Smith, which I've been burned by this movie so many times. I'm like a kid playing near the stove. And the final one is Dalton Schultz. I am not going to get suckered in by one somewhat redeemable week after 3 weeks of utter uselessness. So that's kind of where I'm at. What do you think, Lance? Where are you at here?
Yeah, Musgrave's an intriguing option. I mean, obviously, if Jordan Love starts to, if he bounces back from how he looked on Thursday, then, it's something you can kind of talk yourself into. Jonnu Smith, I'd probably have number 2 just because it it's
Something's
looking
deeply
like Arthur Smith can
yeah.
use tight ends. He just simply doesn't like Kyle Pitts for whatever
They
reason.
keep
So
intimating that Jesus, it's been a long day. That Kyle Pitts is not fully healthy.
yeah,
They
but
keep making these weird intimations around that, and I still don't know what that's about.
there's
But
just been a weird thing going on ever since I, drafted him, and
trade
they
him to the
just yeah,
Cowboys, you
yeah,
cowards.
they got to start, using him somehow. If you played fantasy football in the past couple years too, I mean, Logan Thomas has gotten you out of a couple binds, but
Yeah,
he's also kind
and then
of,
gets hurt immediately.
ridden the fence of, just barely getting you out of there by the skin of your teeth. So, you know, the if you need a tight end, it's rough out there. Yeah, you're really looking for one of
You're
these three
you're praying to
needs,
God that
maybe.
Jake Ferguson is still available, is what you're doing. But the problem is the window on that is rapidly closing
Hmm.
because he's been too good. And I will tell you, after tonight's waiver run, he will be gone.
Hmm.
That will be the end of that. Because that's how bad tight end is Jake Ferguson, just by virtue of what he's done. He's already a top 10 tight end, which means nothing because there's only one tight end that matters. The whole position is stupid. And then the other one that you're hoping might still be there is Zach Ertz, who we've been plugging for weeks and weeks and weeks. Had a bad week not this last Sunday, but week 3.
Hmm.
Ownership drop or roster percentage drops. It's going to come back up because he had 11 points on Sunday and he bounced back. So it's just the way that it goes. Those are the good names. Those are the ones you want because
Hmm.
otherwise you're talking about Jonnu, Logan Thomas, Hayden Hurst, Musgrave, Dalton Schultz, and that's like the next tier of maybe they fall in the end zone. Like that's kind of what you're looking at. And then it's so messed up because you're talking about like, okay, teams that might have got chopped then, right? I mean, obviously, if by some miracle Travis Kelce team got chopped, I will shatter one of my rules and I'll put like $200 on it, possibly more. That's the one thing that I'm really willing to pay for at that position. Hawkinson probably didn't get chopped. Mark Andrews certainly didn't get chopped. Sam Laporta probably did enough to live. I have no interest in Darren Waller until further notice. I am completely out on Darren Waller. If Darren Waller got chopped, leave him there. Let someone else pay for that. That is not something you want. That is deeply broken, and it's really, really horrible. And I actually kind of genuinely feel bad for him. Also, who wears 12 as a tight end? It's confusing. Trying to watch a football game here, not count. That breaks my brain. B82, help me. That's how. Anyway, that's my own personal little. Dallas Goedert, I really appreciate the Eagles coaching staff coming out this week and saying, no, he's going to get it going. Not interested. If he managed to get chopped, same story. Probably going to leave him there unless I'm desperate at tight end. And I
Yeah.
would need to be pretty desperate, and I'm not putting up that Travis Kelce money. I'll put up $40, 35, 50 if I was really desperate, but I don't trust it. And then the other one that I was going to mention is Kyle Pitts. Not for any price.
Hmm.
Not for any price. I wouldn't pay for that with your wife's boyfriend's credit card. Like that's how little I want that. Like that's how that's going to go. Uh, and if Hunter Henry or Cole Kmet was somehow available, I would pay for those. I would do that in a guillotine league, but they're probably gone. And the other one, the last one, the elephant in the room is George Kittle.
Hmm.
I would recommend rostering Kittle, but the problem is I'm not going to pay what I think other people are willing to pay because it says Kittle on the jersey. I think somebody's going to blow the load on this, and I'm not willing to do it. I will put a bid in. It'll be in the $40 neighborhood, maybe 35, around that spot. That's where I'm confident. The problem with Kittle is this. When all of those guys are healthy, Ayuk, Samuel, and in fact, Samuel wasn't even fully healthy, but this has been going on all year. When all 4 of these guys are healthy, Ayuk, Samuel, CMC, Kittle, the one who loses in that target pool is Kittle. They use Kittle to block when all of those guys are healthy. And that's just the way it is. And it sucks. But if one of those guys goes down, Kittle goes like right back into that top 3 conversation. You saw it the 1 week where Ayuk was out. They were targeting him like crazy. So what do you think, Lance? What are your recommendations as it relates to any of that stuff? Tight end related.
Yeah, I'd probably lean into Kittle of everyone that got cut. I mean, it's pretty bleak out there, and especially of the
Pretty
big
bleak is
names.
very generous. Like I have some other
Yeah.
words. Like
Yeah. It's,
many of them start with S and end with Y. And
yeah.
there's a couple T's and there's a couple T's in there.
Waller, I don't want to touch. Kyle Pitts, I don't want to touch. Hawkinson, I'm more than okay for. If
I
he's
just
out
don't
there,
think
I
he's
would.
going to be available. I don't think the Hawkinson team got clipped.
Yeah, no, they didn't. But I mean, he did underperform for what he was expected. So I'm just kind of going based off that. And Dallas Goedert, he's just above that Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts, where I'd be completely off of him. I could talk myself into Dallas Goedert if I'm in a bind, but it wouldn't be
Yeah,
my
me
first
too.
option.
Exactly.
Freiermuth is kind of frustrating because
Well, Freiermuth is now going to miss the next couple weeks. So
yeah, and I mean, even prior to that, you saw what he did last year and this year, even with Deontay Johnson on IR, it's like
yeah, it's not been
he's
good.
not getting the same targets. It's just kind of been frustrating, and the only other name I'd throw in there is the Patriots number 2, and that's Mike Gesicki. But
Ew.
even at that,
Ew. Oh, ew. Oh, I need a shower. Oh,
yeah,
I'm so dirty.
I would just put. I'll put it this way: I would be more inclined to throw a bid down on Mike Gesicki than I would be for both Kyle Pitts and Darren Waller.
God,
That's where I'm at. That's the
so
only
depressing.
reason I would throw
That's the
him
most
in there.
depressing thing. We're trying to help people have a good Tuesday, not send them into therapy. Like that's.
Do you think different?
No, but
No.
like no. Although my thing is like I hate all 3 of those options.
Yeah.
I hate them all. I don't want any of them.
Looking at that,
God, if those are my 3 choices, is there a window I can toss myself out of? Is Tyler Conklin available?
Yeah.
Is Logan Thomas available? If we're getting to that point, like we're playing that type of game. All right. I hope that this has been of value to the people who've been paying attention to this in the background. We have one last thing for Jose before we leave. Jose, I don't know what Herbert you mean. I'm assuming you mean Justin Herbert, because if that's Khalil Herbert, you need to go revoke that trade right now, because that trade could have been accomplished with just Jerry Jeudy. So I want you to reply to me here, because I know you're listening to this. So is it Justin Herbert? Which Herbert? Because if it's Khalil Herbert, go retract that, and you could go re-offer it with just
Jerry Jeudy.
Thank you. And but I'm assuming Justin. If it is Justin Herbert, Godspeed, sir. Because gruesome nail. God, that looked like it hurt. He lost a nail. Did you see what happened?
What was that?
What happened to Justin Herbert in the second half of the game on Sunday?
Oh no, he lost a nail?
Yeah, he got his hand. Okay, you could accomplish Khalil Herbert with just Jerry Jeudy. You don't need Jerry Jeudy and something else. I think you could probably get this done with just Jerry Jeudy. You agree with that, Lance?
Jerry Jeudy
for Khalil Herbert straight up. I feel like that would be very doable. You don't need to sweeten that pot. So that's just a quick thing. Go retract that and rerun it with just Khalil Herbert, and then hit us up in the Discord or on Thursday, because I know you'll be around. We'll be here on Thursday. Hit us up on Thursday if it doesn't go well, and we'll try to workshop something with you in the background. But no, what I was saying is Justin Herbert got his hand pinched in between like helmet and something else, and it knocked him out of the game for a little while. He lost a nail.
Oof.
His finger was all black and blue and terrible.
Oh,
like it looked really painful. No, it looked really painful. Like I saw the replay of it. I'm like,
wish I didn't see that.
Like, oh, why are you showing it in slow motion?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like one of those where it knocked him out of the game for a bit. He had to, and then Eaton Stick had to come in, and I'm like, oh god.
Mhm.
So no, he should be fine because they have the bye. But
Right.
yeah, something to be aware of if you didn't see it. Justin Herbert, it was on his non-throwing hand, thank God.
Mhm.
So that's good. But still, like that looked like it hurt like hell, and he's probably gonna have a splint on it. And like I don't think that's gonna heal in a week, like, or I should say 2
No.
weeks. Really, it's gonna be an issue that they'll probably have to splint it. But at least it's on his non-throwing hand. So,
Mhm.
but it's just something that I noticed that I was like, ow, God, jeez, like I don't know if you ever like slammed your hand in a car door.
Yep.
It's basically the same mechanism as that.
Ugh.
And it's like I'm like, oh. Anyway,
Yeah, that's not
between
fun.
between that and the conversation around tight end, we have now depressed everyone who's been paying attention to this, and now we're gonna leave because that's what we do here. We're gonna absolutely just leave like that and just do that to people. So, uh, Lance, where can the people find you when you're not on here doing this with us?
Again, I'll say it again on Twitter until they make me pay for
Yep, there you
it.
go, 100%. Uh, so yeah, and find me at nonsense_Neil on Twitter until they make me start having to pay for it. But also here 3 days a week, including Sundays when I moderate the chat. I'm not actually on camera, but I'm here, and then on our Discord, which you can join. It's in the link to this particular show. So I hope that everybody has enjoyed this. Good luck on your waiver runs tonight. Good luck on your guillotine waiver runs tomorrow. Hopefully you have avoided. If you're still watching this, you've probably made the cut to this point. So hopefully that's still going well. And good luck with the buys, because now we officially get into the skill portion of fantasy football, where you have to figure it out every week. This is where we separate the men from the boys. Is how deep can you go? But until then, keep up the nonsense, and we will see you on Thursday for Roster the People to help get you all your lineup questions answered and tolerate a Thursday night football game that no one should watch. You should tune into Roster the People rather than watching that game because it's Commanders Bears. But until then, keep up the nonsense, and we'll see you Thursday.